My name is Sue Kazlusky, and I am your worship leader this morning. Here are our announcements. Zoom has made some changes, and we have to change with them. When you logged into our Sunday worship service, you may have been asked to agree to being recorded before being allowed into the service. This is a new Zoom feature that we cannot change. You will still not show up in our recordings unless you unmute yourself during the service. You can also still turn off your video for added privacy if needed. Our recordings only show the person talking or unmuted. Next Sunday is our annual congregational meeting. We encourage everyone to plan to attend the meeting after the service, especially members, but reserve voting for members only. If you have any questions about your member status, please contact Judy Stetner in the office. As we take steps toward increasing our ability to be together in person, we'd like to hear your voice. Please fill out the survey posted in the chat and in the happenings. We are asking for your names. However, the only person who will see the raw data, including your name, will be Reverend Jen. The data summary will be shared with the Chalice board and the Chalice COVID team. Each member of your family can fill out the survey. Reverend Jen will be on vacation May 27th to June 3rd. This is in replacement to the vacation she was originally going to take May 11th through May 17th. During this time, she will be unavailable except for pastoral emergencies. John Murphy needs help sorting caps and lids at the church to be turned into benches and tables. Please message John in the chat if you can help. Join us for Inquirers today on Membership 101 and Congregational Life. Inquirers is our Faith Forward program to help you get to know our congregation and Unitarian Universalism. We offer this series of 1-hour interactive information sessions after the service each Sunday, and they can be taken in any order. Come and get to know us. The next Women's Book Club discussion will be on Friday, June 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. We will be discussing War, How Conflict Shaped Us by Margaret McMillan. Mindfulness has returned with half-hour sessions Tuesday nights and Thursday afternoons. Information for these sessions is in the happenings, breeze, and the events calendar on our website. Treat your mind to this moment of calm. Our Compassion for Campers homeless support program is ramping up for the summer months. Check the happenings for the ways you or your group can help, including buying and donating shopping cards from Sandy Eckert. And now we have an announcement from our board president, Leah Mickelson.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Leah, and for those who don't know me, I am the current board president. And I know we're all really excited about the recent news from the CDC, saying that folks who are vaccinated can return to many of their previous activities, and we're so excited about that. As we move as a community from being entirely online to more and more in-person gathering, we'd like to do so in a slow, phased approach. And there are other things to consider, such as how people are feeling about the transition, recommendations from the UUA as well as the CDC, and our vaccination status as a congregation. So that's why we're reaching out to better understand what the vaccination level is within our congregation. I know that might feel a little uncomfortable, but as Judy said, the only folks that are going to see names and raw data will be Reverend Jen. And we really want to hear your voice. My suspicion is that most of us are probably fully vaccinated, but we don't want to move ahead with plans until we have a better idea of that. I hope that you got the email that was sent out at the end of last week about starting to resume some in-person gathering. If you didn't get the email, I'd like to just go over briefly a little bit about what's changing. We are moving to officially meeting off church grounds for church-related activities. And what that really means is that groups are welcome to not only meet off church grounds, but to post their meetings and groups and so forth in the happenings and invite friends and members. We do ask that masks and social distancing be the norm when gathering. However, if all in attendance are comfortable discussing their vaccination status and are vaccinated, and that group that's meeting chooses to not wear masks or not social distance, if everyone feels comfortable with that, that's fine. We also gave some recommendations that smaller groups are less anxiety provoking. That we've been through a really difficult year. And for some folks, meeting in larger groups can seem overwhelming. So smaller groups are really recommended. Meeting outside is recommended if possible. And masks should still be worn regardless of vaccination status when visiting with medically at risk or unvaccinated individuals. On church grounds, we're wanting to start slowly, and we'll increase these numbers probably fairly quickly, but we want to do so in a phased-in approach. Right now, we're recommending that groups can meet outside on church grounds for church-related activities in groups of 10 households or less, and that will increase because I know the choir is very anxious to start singing. So yeah, we're just like, yay! And Cassandra's working on that, on working towards getting the choir together fairly soon. But for right now, other groups, we're asking for 10 or less households at a time, just to make sure that we're coordinating groups and making sure the bathrooms are available and so forth. We are asking that a representative from the group reach out to Judy yes, just so we can make sure that we coordinate, before meeting. And then pastoral care appointments are going to start up again. Rev Jen is asking that those be outside and limited to 1 or 2 people, and that masks and social distancing be observed. Staff members are continuing to come into the building, and they're working with each other to make sure that they're following protocols and everyone feels comfortable. In terms of congregants in the church building, we're asking to start with groups of 5 or less, and that masks and social distancing be respected in common areas. Attendees should be fully vaccinated, and congregants should reach out to Reverend Jen, or while Reverend Jen is on vacation, to Judy, to coordinate those efforts coming into the building. We'll be talking more about the phased-in approach to welcoming back to in-person gathering at the congregational meeting, and the board welcomes your input and your questions. So feel free to reach out by email or bring your questions to the congregational meeting. And that's all I have.
Oops. Thanks, Leah, for all that information. And we again encourage you to fill out the survey. If you're here today, it's in the chat today. You can just do it in any moments that you choose. We're glad you're here and are available to answer your questions. If you are new to Tree of Life, we hope you will fill out the visitor online card that will be posted in the chat. We invite you to join us for coffee hour breakouts after the service, or stay in this main room after the service to be greeted by a member of our welcome team. We are a friendly bunch and welcome a chance to get to know you. We welcome all who have joined us this morning, and so begin our service. Good morning. Welcome to Tree of Life Unitarian Universalist Congregation online service. The service this morning is presented by the Tree of Life Worship Committee and is entitled In Memory of What We Have Lost. And now here is our call to worship from Carol Alphys.
Surrender to This Life by Gretchen Haley. Give up the fight for some other moment, some other life than here and now. Give up the longing for some other world, the wishing for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other ages, other countries. Purge the past, forgive the future, for each come too soon. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour, not because it does not constantly break your heart, but because it also beckons with beauty, startles with delight, if only we keep waking up. This is the gift we have been given. These body clothes, this heartbreak, this pulse, this breath, this light, these friends, this hope. Here we remember ourselves, all a part of it all, together. Come, let us worship.
Thank you, Carol. Our theme for this month is story, and Ron Relic is our chalice lighter this morning. Ron?
I thought for a chalice reading, I would revisit the Lynn Unger, who's a Unitarian minister, poem that went viral last year called Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You can hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world you'll love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. I like this chalice looking forward to the end of the pandemic, which will bring us needed relief and help us mourn.
Thank you so much, Ron. Please join us in recalling our purpose. We journey as a family towards spiritual growth, freedom and faith, celebration of diversity, commitment to action, devotion to each other, the community, and the earth. Our story for all ages today is entitled Buddha and the Mustard Seed and is narrated by Heather Madaus.
This is a story about beginnings, or maybe about endings. Let's see what we have to help us get ready. It's a circle. I wonder what this could be. That's all. Let's take a breath and get ready for our story. Have you ever been sad? I mean really, really sad. Today's story starts with a mother who was very sad. She was sad because her child was so sick. She had bathed him and given him his medicine. She did everything she knew to help her son get better. Finally, in desperation, she did one last thing. She had heard the Buddha teach many times. His stories and teachings were so wise. The Buddha was the wisest, smartest person she could imagine. This mother, like many other people, believed that the Buddha could do anything, even make sick people well. She told the Buddha how sick her child was. And how she had tried everything she knew to help him get better. She said, "You are the wisest person on earth. I knew that if anyone could help my child, it would be you." But the Buddha saw that the child wasn't sick. He was dead. The Buddha knew that there was nothing he could do for the child, but he thought maybe, just maybe, there's something he could do for the woman. He told her that he could make a special medicine for the child, but that to make this medicine, he would need the woman to find him a rare ingredient. He would need her to bring him a mustard seed. But that wasn't all. The mustard seed had to come from a house in which none who lived there had ever experienced pain or loss. He told her, "Go door to door and bring me a mustard seed from each house free of sadness, loss, and death." So she went to each house in the town. And at each door she arrived, and she would say, "My child is dying, and the Buddha said he could help my child if I could find a seed from a home in which no one has ever been sad, or known death, or been lonely, or experienced loss." Have you ever been sad? I wonder if you have ever been sad. So I suppose you don't have a seed that would help the Buddha make his special medicine? When the mother had visited every house in the village, she returned to the Buddha. The Buddha asked the woman what she had learned. She explained that she learned that there was no house in the entire village in which no one there had not at some time been sad or experienced loss or been in pain. She said that she learned that there was nothing the Buddha could do to help her child. She said she also learned that she wasn't alone. That as sad as she was, she now knew that others had cried tears of loss before her. I wonder if there is anyone who might have a seed to help this mother. I wonder why the Buddha didn't just tell the mother that he couldn't heal the child. I wonder what the Buddha would have done with a mustard seed had the woman found one. I wonder how the woman felt going into everybody's house. I wonder how many people she talked to about her child before she returned to the Buddha. I wonder how the people felt when the woman came to their doors. I wonder what sorts of sad things the other people had experienced. I wonder if the woman felt better by the time she returned to the Buddha. I wonder if the people felt better when the woman came to their house. I wonder where you are in this story.
Our special music is written and sung by Dan Schatz and is entitled Carry the Flame.
Time you ever knew, the only thing that you could do was carry the flame. Sickness spreading through the land, you held your spirit in your hands and carried the flame. When storms and sorrows gathered round, you raised your head and you stayed your ground. You carried the flame. Through endless days of the hardest living, you kept on loving, kept on giving. You kept on and carried the flame. The flame, raise it high, send its beacon through the sky, keep it strong and shining through the pain. Let it rise and let it grow, let it light the world, you know, let it glow. Carry the flame. And when the day is done at last, we take on the spark you passed and carry the flame. From hand to hand we send it on, the kindling hope of a rising dawn. In a song we carry the flame. Carry the flame, raise it high, send its beacon through the sky, keep it strong and shining through the pain. Let it rise and let it grow, let it light the world, you know, let it glow. Carry the flame. We are nurses, doctors, teachers. We are children, parents, preachers, and we all carry the flame. We are scientists and cargo packers, farmers, singers, grocery stackers, young and old. We carry the flame, carry the flame, raise it high, send its beacon through the sky, keep it strong and shining through the pain. Let it rise and let it grow. Let it light the world, you know. Let it glow. Carry the flame. Let it glow. Carry the flame.
Wow, that was a great song. Thank you for whoever found that. In planning today's message, the worship arts team decided to each talk briefly about one thing that was lost during this past year. We would like to thank Tom Steffens for this video. He filmed each of us, edited the video, and then added his special Tom touches. We now present In Memory of What We Have Lost by the worship arts team.
What have I missed greatly during the pandemic? Wait, what? We're not supposed to travel? Oh, come on. How long do you think that's going to last? Longer than I ever thought possible. In a survey by American Express, it was found that U.S. consumers were seriously missing travel amid the pandemic, and that it was taking a real emotional toll on them. Nearly half of those surveyed reported that the inability to travel was causing them to feel anxious and stressed. And 3 out of 4 respondents cited travel as one of the activities that they're most yearning for. Until very recently, Americans remained reluctant to return to travel. Labor Day weekend, only 10% planned to travel. By Thanksgiving, 20%. Only recently have we seen an uptick in travel reservations for airlines and hotels that are booming for the summer. As a semi-retired person with more time to travel now, more time to think about what its loss means to me, it was among the many frustrations. Well, among the long list of freedoms lost, the ability and the desire to travel is the one felt keenly by all and was right up there with hugs. I miss the respite that travel provides. Travel allows me to disconnect in a way that I can't at home. Removed from work, from errands, from personal problems, and given a new place to explore, transports me into a carefree mindset. I feel my most authentic self when traveling. Traveling is a time I can forget about the anxieties, the stresses of everyday life, and just be in the moment with what I'm experiencing. That just feels so good. Like much during this time, I never realized how much I missed it. How often I would feel that frustration. Holidays and vacations became a challenge, with limitations on any pleasure. While 2020 and 2021 dragged on for all the wrong reasons, one thing I missed most is the way that travel slows down time and helps you appreciate every moment. Because you're always having new experiences. You're seeing new places. You make new memories. You gain new revelations. And trying to make new memories and gain new life experiences became so hard. We did learn to appreciate what we have locally, as Facebook was full of pictures, many from our Tree of Lifers, of the numerous McHenry County Conservation District sites, many of which I didn't even know were there. But for most of us who have been vaccinated, we are grateful that there's more that we can now do. While for many, the immunocompromised, for example, difficulties and frustrations continue. We are traveling into a new post-pandemic world. As we revisit our old way of life, we bring to it some of the new things that we have learned. Thank you, Zoom. And we have developed a new appreciation for the freedoms that were limited and whose loss we felt so deeply. But at the moment, I feel an awakened desire to continue to explore living this beautiful and now even more appreciated life fully. Time to get on the road again. Yes.
During this COVID time, I lost, for many months, the comfort of human touch. In March of 2020, my husband and I were babysitting our 5-year-old granddaughter 2 days a week. That came to a halt with the governor's stay-at-home order. We missed her sweetness and her energy, and it was only later I realized how much I missed her hugs and the tickle fight she always started, and the late afternoon snuggles in front of a movie. Just like everyone else, our world got very small very quickly. We were a bubble of two, trying to learn the rules to this new deadly serious way of living. Greg had always been a homebody and was not so fazed by this new hunker down, keep your distance style of our lives. I, on the other hand, was missing substitute teaching, going to church, singing in choir, and hanging out with my sisters and my friends. Still, we had each other. Until quite suddenly, in early June, a cardiac event took Greg's life. For a brief time, social distancing went out the window as the family gathered to mourn. In late June, after our daughter hugged me and got in her car to drive back to Colorado, I became a bubble of one. Thankfully, it was summer and I could mask up and see people outside. There was FaceTime and Zoom, so it's not like I was totally isolated. Needless to say, I was still somewhat in shock, trying to navigate life without Greg in the midst of a global pandemic. Of course, I was missing Greg's solid bear hugs, goodnight kisses, pats on the behind. I missed holding my youngest granddaughter and playing patty cake with her. But it was more than that. I began to think about all of the incidental touching I was no longer doing, like fist bumping or high-fiving special ed kids I sub for, with shaking someone's hand or patting them on the back, tapping them on the shoulder, hugging a friend, greeting a sister with a kiss. I guess I'm much more tactile than I realized. As time went on, I began to understand how important all of this human contact is to me. It's comforting, reassuring, grounding. It says, I see you, I care. I adopted a dog in September, and as sweet and affectionate as she is, it's not the same, not even close. By February, the touch deficit, that lack of grounding, was so pronounced, I felt I might just float away. I was saved, of course, by the vaccine By early April, I was fully vaxxed and able to hug my fully vaxxed older sister. My vaxxed friends and I celebrated with high fives and hugs. A month later, sweetest of all, I could finally hug my now 6-year-old granddaughter. Her almost 2-year-old sister, though, doesn't recognize Grandma without her mask, and for now is withholding hugs. But I did get a kiss last week. I'll take it.
We have experienced so much loss in the last year and a half that I wasn't sure what to talk about, but then the idea came to me. Education has been my touchstone since I was 5 years old. As COVID gathered speed, I was always asking, what is happening in our schools? It was usually my first question because we have 5 school-age grandchildren. So our other 4 were learning at home on their Chromebooks. By November, our son realized that unless he had some help, his 5th grader and his 8th grader were going to fail. Papa and Graham to the rescue because we were able to. I spent many days this past winter running back and forth between the 2 bedrooms trying to keep 2 boys on task. Is your video on? Is your audio on? Can you access program-based learning? What class are you in now? Did you submit your assignment? In January, I read a statistic that made a lot of sense. Only 20% of kids were expected to be successful with e-learning. I witnessed the truth of that fact. Our 5th grader was in a class with 20 students. 2 girls were always engaged, always able to answer the questions, always led the groups in their breakout rooms. The teacher spent the rest of the day doing call and response. Aiden, where are you? Jimmy, are you here? Billy, turn your video on. Kathy, where's your homework? The 8th grader hated to turn his video on. Kids remarked on other kids' bedrooms, their kitchens, their workspaces. Not an ideal thing for a vulnerable middle schooler to deal with. Very difficult to have a science class with no experiments, a PE class with no games. Their teachers were working so hard to make up for all the deficiencies of e-learning. Most of them had spent the previous summer learning about new ways to present information of their curriculum for the first time. I was really impressed by how far they had come. I realize that none of these teachers are as old as me, but I can guarantee that not all of them were technologically proficient. They are now. Luckily, according to Judith Warner, writing in the New York Times, all the experts in adolescent development interviewed in her article said that yes, the past year has been terrible, and most adolescents will be fine. Middle schoolers are going through a critical period of heightened brain flexibility, instability, but plasticity, which means that they are hypersensitive and ultra vulnerable, but also primed for resilience and adaptability. Mitch Prinstein, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at UNC in Chapel Hill, says, we need to focus not just on hardship and tragedy. We need to praise our kids for their flexibility, their resilience, and their ability to change. Wow, maybe that applies to all of us. I have told our grandkids repeatedly over the last year and a half, if you can come out on the other side of a pandemic, you can do anything.
During COVID, I have lost something very precious, and I miss it every day. Ever since I moved to Woodstock over 35 years ago, it has been a singular constant. I performed in church and community choirs, screamed 60s songs in a rock and roll band, and harmonized doo-wop with a goofy bunch of beer-guzzling UUs. I have caroled at the professional a cappella group each Christmas season, and sweating, I have rushed out on stage and attempted to remember lyrics and dance steps during annual musical fundraisers for this church. I have kissed and hugged, laughed with and consoled, and unfortunately lost some of the best friends a guy could have. Most importantly, I met and married the love of my life, who has shared this wonderful journey with me. My constant has been music and my venue, live group performance. And 15 months ago, that constant vanished and has never returned. What do I specifically miss? First, the challenge, being the only bass, or maybe one of two, and knowing I had to know all the notes or I could single-handedly wreck the song. I remember when we began rehearsals for our 2016 choir trip to Romania, and Tom had mentioned that he wanted us to memorize everything. 15 songs, most a cappella, some difficult harmonies, and no books and no music. After we pulled our collective jaws off the floor, we all took Tom's challenge, and the result was amazing. Second, the commitment. Rushing home from work, getting up very early or staying up way too late, and listening to my tapes over and over, and rewinding and playing them again and again. Agreeing to rehearsals, and then extra rehearsals, small group rehearsals, pickup rehearsals, 3, 4, and 5 times a week. Sue and I would drive to her parents an hour and a half away and review our parts, both alto and bass, until we felt we knew them. And then we would turn off the tape and sing the parts together, a cappella. If we messed up, we would do it again and again. Finally, and most importantly, the camaraderie, fixing each other's costumes, warming up, starting each song, fixing the trouble spots, and then lots of high fives, fist bumps, break a leg, hugs. I remember in Romania singing 2 impromptu songs in an ancient, acoustically perfect church, and listening to our last chord ring as our equally impromptu audience roared. For a musical group, it doesn't get any better. My friends, I have every confidence that come this fall, Tree of Life will once again have in-person church and hopefully an in-person choir. But I'm worried because, quite frankly, my voice is not the same as it was. My sight reading, my high notes, my breathing are all kind of shoddy. In the past, with use, they have all come back. I hope they do again. And if they don't, well, Joni Mitchell told us 60 years ago, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone?
Oh, as Ron always says, I'm verklempt. Excuse me. Each week we take an offering that supports the work of this congregation in our lives, in our communities, and in the world. Today and in the weeks to come, you may make your offering in one of three ways, which are listed on your screen. Text to give at 815-332-0643. Give online using treeoflifeuu.breeze. Mail your check or snail mail to 5603 Bull Valley Road, McHenry, Illinois, 60050, and indicate which fund, the pledge, Second Sunday, or the general fund. During this time of uncertainty, your generosity to Tree of Life is more important than ever. And as always, we give thanks for these gifts and for all the gifts that you bring. Today, in place of joys and concerns, we will have two special presentations. The first, in memoriam, will concentrate on remembering the members and friends of Tree of Life who passed away during this past year, some of them from COVID. This video has been created by Reverend Jen and Virginia. Thank you so much for your help and creativity. The second presentation will be a tribute by Tree of Life board member Sue McCowan in honor of our former minister, the Reverend Dan Larson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Long before Dan Larson was even a gleam in the eye of the Congregational Unitarian Universalist Church of Woodstock, Randy and I began attending the tiny Alden Methodist Church just up the road from us, looking for a minister to officiate at the fall 1984 wedding that we were planning. What we found, in addition to the man who would marry us, was a part-time freelance minister who preached like no minister either of us had ever heard. Days after the service, we found ourselves still thinking and talking about what he had said. Even then, we were noticing one of the traits that this congregation would come to love in Dan Larson. He was always willing to speak his mind and call things as he saw them, even when he knew it might make people mad. For example, when Turning Point, then just a fledgling domestic violence agency, approached the Alden Church about using a trailer on the church property as an emergency shelter for women, some in the congregation were concerned about possible liabilities and wondered if the church's insurance policy would cover that sort of thing. Dan told them that if Jesus were there, he didn't think Jesus would let insurance considerations influence his decisions. Or when the congregation was contemplating a substantial upgrade to its kitchen, Dan did not favor this use of funds and preached a sermon suggesting that the congregation should consider whether they wanted to be a church or a community club. I suspect that many of you who were part of the congregation during the Dan years are smiling at this point and nodding in recognition. Unsurprisingly, Dan's tenure at the Alden Church was fairly short. Fortunately, that meant he was available when the Congregational Unitarian Church, fractured and faltering at that time, was in need of a minister but lacked the funds to hire a full-time pastor. Dan began working as our minister on a part-time basis in 1991. He found the spiritual home he had been looking for all his life, and he eagerly sought and received full fellowship from the Unitarian Universalist Association and eventually became our full-time minister. We gained a minister who could help us heal the traumatic split that had nearly broken the church and to grow once again into a strong and vibrant congregation. As a minister, Dan was not given to intellectual, erudite sermons. He spoke from his heart and grounded his sermons in his own day-to-day life, or maybe on a book he had read. I'll bet there are quite a few of you here who could remember Dan preaching on the deep life lessons and wisdom to be learned from Winnie the Pooh. And I remember pretty vividly listening to Dan preach about depression, speaking honestly and openly about his own struggles with that insidious disease and the hurt that it had brought to him and to his family. Dan was fearless in sharing his vulnerabilities, and by this, he gave comfort and encouragement and somehow made you feel less alone with whatever struggles you might be facing. Time and time and time again, when people were asked why they joined our church, they spoke of Dan and his warmth and his sermons. Another of Pastor Dan's defining characteristics was that he was always ready to help people in need and to challenge us to do the same. He didn't stop to ask if it was feasible or what it could go wrong or how it would work out. He just got to work, supporting the use of our building as a PADS shelter, establishing a Latino outreach program, helping to found the Woodstock Area Community Ministry and to establish its direct assistance program, which operated out of our building for years, organizing the first Diversity Day celebration and sponsoring it for years thereafter, offering our building as a safe and free meeting place to McHenry County Pride and PFLAG, using his minister's discretionary fund to help any number of people who had heard through the grapevine somehow that the pastor over at the Unitarian Church was always ready to help. Dan just charged in and started drafting people to help him do what needed to be done. He wasn't shy about asking for help. And if you are one of the many people who had the experience of being asked by Dan to do something, you know that he was a very hard man to say no to. My favorite story of Dan's determination to do the right thing has to do with how the Blue Lotus Temple came to meet in our church building. In the early 2000s, a young Sri Lankan Buddhist monk studying at a monastery in Michigan felt a strong calling to share the teachings of Buddhism more widely with American people. He had heard that Unitarian Universalism was the most open-minded and liberal denomination in the United States, so he wrote letters to dozens and dozens of Unitarian ministers asking if their church might be willing to help him. Talk about cold calls, my goodness. He received only a very few responses, one of them from Pastor Dan, who said, essentially, sure, come on down here to Woodstock. We'll figure out something to get you set up. And they did. The Blue Lotus Temple was established by Bhante Sujata in 2003. It met in our building for years, grew, and eventually was able to purchase the building from us when we moved to this building in McHenry. How wonderful that Dan was the kind of pastor who said, sure, we'll figure something out, we'll get it done, and had the faith and courage to move ahead, even if he really wasn't exactly sure how it could all work out. When the time came for Dan to step away from the church, it was not an easy parting. He had a very hard time letting go of the work that had given purpose and shape to his life for so many years. And it was hard for him to watch the church move on without him. Then he lost his beloved wife, Pat, who had been his anchor, as well as the person who softened his rough edges and managed the practicalities of his life. After that, Dan struggled, not especially successfully, to find meaningful work and a sense of purpose in his life. His physical health deteriorated, and his depression resurfaced with a vengeance. He passed away a little over a year ago in a nursing home under a COVID lockdown. The Soul Matters theme for May was story, and I reflected a lot this month on the power of story. We shape our views of ourselves and of each other by the stories we tell. Dan no longer has any power to shape the story of his life. That power now lies with us and the others whose lives he touched. What story will we tell? Dan would be the first to admit that he was not perfect. In addition to his struggles with depression, he was considered by many to be a master of passive aggressiveness. He could be a little on the autocratic side. He was also a patient and compassionate listener, a stalwart champion of the underprivileged, an unpretentious, warm, and loving minister, and a leader who served our congregation long and well. One of the suggested activities in the Soul Matters packet this month was to construct a story of your life in a single sentence. I wasn't very successful at coming up with a sentence to describe myself, but I thought a lot about what I might say to describe Dan's life, at least as it pertained to his time with our congregation. So here is a sentence that I have chosen to remember him by. Pastor Dan was a good and kind man who loved us and who always called us to be our best selves. Rest in peace, Pastor Dan. Your work is done, and we are better people for you having been among us. Your life mattered. Farewell, my friend. Amen.
Ooh, thank you, Sue, for that memory of Dan. He is missed and he did matter. Thank you. Now let's sing together as Billy Seger plays hymn 318, We Would Be One. The words will appear on the screen for you.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to play.
Thank you so much, Billy. Please join in reading our closing words. Be ours a religion, which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. We will now extinguish our chalice. If you have a chalice or flame at home, you may do the same. We extinguish this flame of communal worship and now carry its light within us. We share this light, we carry its warmth to all whom we meet. And we have one last blessing to leave you all with.
For our blessing today, each of us decided to leave you with a positive outcome for the past 15 months. My COVID blessing was that Sue and I visited all 24 of the McHenry County Conservation District sites and rediscovered nature.
My COVID blessing is my adopted dog, Maggie, who kept me company and kept me sane through a long winter.
Good.
My COVID blessing is that I had the space to focus on intermittent fasting and the time for doing lengthy daily walks, which together allowed me to lose 55, never missed, pounds.
My COVID blessing was in the kitchen. I know, that's surprising. I tried new recipes, made homemade applesauce with my new apple peeler device, and while I haven't mastered bread baking, I am becoming more comfortable with yeast. Blessed be